All right, we're live. Coming to you live. Cool, we got the backup running, we got the audio running, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of UP Lando, the show that takes you inside the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, and the occasional success. That is the everyday challenge of my life as I pursue my never-ending effort of trying to level up. I am your host, Landon Like a Plane, and I'm coming to you from Truscott Studios, also known as my bedroom, right here in lovely Aspen, Colorado. Today is Tuesday, April 15th at 10:18 a.m. And I got to say, everybody, I am doing good. So that's a little bit of a change up. And in that way, I'll dive all into it. But first, let's just get right out of the gate with some levels up. First and foremost, we are here in mid-April, April 15th. The snow season ends this weekend. This is the last few days of skiing that there's going to be available for winter 2024-2025. And a few things happened. First of all, I got my 100 days of skiing just a couple days ago on 4/11. And that is a very momentous occasion, a milestone, a pat on the back because we definitely leveled up. This was the first year that I've had to pay for my own ski pass. And it was the first year in 10 years of living in Aspen that I got a 100-day season, which is to say, I really got the value out of my pass. I was able to stay healthy and uninjured throughout the entire winter season, which is what allowed me to get to 100 days. In addition to which, I got this little 100 days of skiing 2024-2025 pin, and that is what makes it official. So that is a big level up. We're patting ourselves on the back for that one. It was a little bit of a side quest goal as far as what I'm up to here in my life in Aspen, and we did it, and it was not easy. And so I do feel like that's a pretty big accomplishment. It is a big milestone, and like I said, want to pat myself on the back. And in case you don't watch this show ever, the reason I pat myself on the back and the reason I encourage you to pat yourself on the back is if you don't do it, nobody else is going to. So from time to time, it is okay to toot your own horn, and it is okay to be proud of yourself and to acknowledge your own achievements and accomplishments, which is essentially what this entire show is all about. Acknowledging the small wins through the suffering and the roller coaster ride of life as we slowly move towards success and less struggle. So that's a big one. 100 days skiing in the winter is just incredible. Also got to kick off the Highlands Day closing party. Went out there and celebrated the end of that mountain shutting. That was this last weekend on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. So Sunday we went to the Highlands celebration, and it was a pretty good time, I gotta say. Generally speaking, it's a little bit bougie. They've really kind of boxed out the locals over the last few years. And even though it cost $20 to get in, and I did not pay that, it was a little bit more for the people this year. So I did have a good time going out there, and we threw down. It was a good party. So in that way, the Highlands Mountains shut. We are down to 2 mountains out of our 4. Aspen Mountain and Snowmass Mountain are the only mountains that remain open with 4 days left, 5 days left in the season. I guess it goes till Sunday. So 5 days left in the season. The season will be ending on April 20th. So big win, feeling really confident, feeling really good about the fact that we did that. And it's kind of a big deal, actually. So really proud of myself for that. Now, in other news, I have been starting my own business and finding some success in that, where I ended up getting this little notebook from going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Now, this is from Berkshire Hathaway. And so I took one of their little notebooks, as I tend to like to use these notebooks to keep track of my goals, which I do have my little yellow notebook of accountability somewhere out there. And actually, I should probably go get that. But it was interesting trying to get this podcast fired up today. Last time I sat down to do this, the backup phone was dead, and I had this little this pop voice mic on, which I got up and walked away from the computer, and it snagged, and I lost the little microphone like cover. And then today, when I went to try to find it, I found it, but I lost the little clip that lets you clip this to your shirt. And so I've been hunting around trying to figure out where it is, and I could not, for the life of me, find it. I still can't find it. Which is just interesting when you sit down to podcast and you expect everything to be there, and it's not there, and then you can't podcast as a result of that. So took a little while of hunting around and trying to scrounge up some other pieces from other microphones to make it all work, but definitely much easier when you have everything in place and you can just sit down and go. Versus, I mean, it literally took me probably an hour longer than I was expecting to be able to turn this on today. So learning some life lessons there as far as preparation and organization, as well as being set up properly right out of the gate. And I believe those are lessons that you can apply to life in general. And so, the more prepared you are, the better you're going to be. And so I would highly encourage everybody to spend time preparing and making sure that everything is in place before they venture out into the journeys of success and the struggles that go along with it. So let's talk just a little bit more about this meeting that I went to, and then I'll tell you about some of the juicy gossip. So I went to this meeting. It was a Chamber of Commerce meeting, which part of the way that I was able to get my ski pass this year is I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and they gave me a $600 discount. Now, it costs $600 to join the Chamber of Commerce, so it was essentially a wash. However, I haven't really used the Chamber of Commerce at all, even though I should be. So this time I went ahead and reached out to one of the people who was in charge of the chamber, and they directed me to this event where I got to go network and meet a variety of different business owners in the town, including a photographer. Check out this business card. That's kind of cool. It's like a little camera. And then in addition to that, I got connected to a few other people. So we got a reverend of the church, as well as, more photography people. And then in addition to that, a guy over in the marketing department at the W. So really got some great leads as far as trying to continue to network within the town and do business. Now, the last time that I sat down, I was super fired up because I had sold a client on a $2,500 package to go shoot this mobile home park, 2 different mobile home parks down valley in Carbondale and Basalt, which I had accomplished. I shot the photos, I delivered on the package and the project, only to then be met by complaint after complaint after complaint from this client. Now, I'll keep in mind, I had already delivered on the package, and I delivered to the terms of agreement. And one of their complaints about the photos was that they had imagined in their mind that there would be snow all over the ground, even though we're in the middle of April. Now, these people are from Dallas, so they wouldn't know better. However, you got to assume that by the middle of April, the snow's melted. I mean, even up here in Aspen, there's no snow. But there not being any snow then led to them complaining that the photos looked bleak, that the grass was dead, that there was no leaves on the tree, and there was no green in the shots, which, to their point, is true. The grass is dead. The leaves are not on the tree yet, and therefore there is not a lot of green. However, that is not my fault. And so despite them complaining, I really went out of my way to try to accommodate them. I said, how about I get an editor involved and I can do the editing myself? And I did a little editing and sent it to them, and they didn't like that. So then I called in my friend Rob, who is a professional editor out in Hollywood and does this kind of color grading and editing for both Hollywood television and movies, and is a professional. and he edited one of the photos for me, and I sent it to them, and they still did not like it. So at that point, we reached sort of a point of contention where they decided that they thought that they were entitled to a discount as a result of the quote unquote low quality of my images and my work. And that is something I haven't dealt with yet. So now I have a client who I have contracted to pay me, and I completed the project for the contract. And instead of paying me, they are complaining that the quality of my work is not up to par. Now, I really had to sit with that as a business owner and as somebody who believes that my reputation is my brand, and that I would much rather have a strong reputation and good recommendations from my clients than to make an extra $1,000. When I reviewed the project and the terms of agreement, which I was really upfront about, and I told him how much I cost, and I told him that I was expensive, and he agreed to go ahead and do the deal with me as a result of me being here in Aspen and being able to meet his rushed time frame, which they wanted delivered on Thursday of last week, and I delivered it on Wednesday of last week, so a full 24 hours ahead of time. I came to the decision that I'd met the terms of the agreement, and that his complaints with the photography were subjective, and that despite him not liking the photos, I delivered. And not only did I deliver, I went above and beyond, as I tend to do. I went ahead and got him video. I also got him an edited photo for free, 3 photos really. And like I said, really kind of bent over backwards to accommodate this guy. And rather than acknowledging that, and rather than, agreeing to continue to try to work with me through the issues, he kind of stonewalled me and said, you know what, I don't have time to do this. What we're going to go ahead and do is bring in our own drone team from Dallas out there to do the job correctly, which I found to be amusing, because to fly a drone pilot out from Dallas cannot be cheap, and to put them up in a hotel cannot be cheap, and to rent a car cannot be cheap, in addition to their rates. So I spent quite a bit of my day yesterday mulling over how I was going to handle this and how I was going to reach some sort of resolution. And after calling several different other business owners that I know in the town, I basically got the advice of fire this guy, get him to pay you, and take his money and never work with him again, because this is not the kind of client that you want to be working with going forward. And I gotta say, to a certain degree, as much as I need the money and as much as I enjoy having new clients and having people find me through my website, not every client is a right fit. And just because they're willing to pay you money doesn't mean that it's worth it to take their money if they're going to be a pain in your ass. And that, as important as it is to be getting new clients, it's also very important for me to vet those clients and to make sure that we will work well together, because as I'm learning through this process, oftentimes the client isn't the right fit, and oftentimes, as a result of them not being the right fit, the money is not worth it. And so, from that point of view, I kind of feel good. I got to fire somebody. I got to fire one of my clients and tell them, you know what, this just isn't how this works, and this isn't how I do business. And I'm not going to go ahead and lower the rate. We had an agreed upon contract and terms of agreement, and I delivered, and more than that, on all of it. And so I expect payment in full. So we will see if they choose to pay me or not. He said that he would in an email, even though he was still asking for a discount, at which point I decided to deny him the discount and then also refuse to do future business with him. And again, as much as I would really have preferred to be able to do future business with him, it became very evident and clear that he was not the right kind of a client for me. So real interesting learning through this process, kind of the hard way. But as a result, I got AI to give me terms of agreement that would help to avoid some sort of problem like that in the future, to which they put in a subjective disapproval clause, which is to say that if the client disapproves of the photography based off of seeing prior samples and decides that they want a discount, that as long as the terms of the agreement are met, which is the resolution of the photos, how many photos, what the photos are of, that their subjective disapproval does not warrant a discount. In addition to that, I also learned to put in a weather clause, which is to say that if there is snow or lack thereof, and therefore a lack of foliage and dead grass, that's not on me either. And that if that does affect their approval of the photos, that has nothing to do with me, and that I do not control the weather nor the time of year which these people are requesting their photos. So if it's the springtime, that there's not going to be leaves on the tree, and that's kind of how it goes. So again, learning a lot as I make my way through these clients and these contracts and these terms of agreement, and I'm slowly honing it in and narrowing it down to get real explicit in my contracts and my terms of agreement. I also learned I'm taking a 50% deposit from now on, and that I will not begin work without half the money up front, just in case they do decide to not pay me on the back end for whatever reason. At least I've got 50% of the money up front. So, a lot of lessons learned, and I continue to get better at both negotiating the business deals as well as flying the drone and capturing the images I need to capture. So, feeling pretty good at the end of the day. I've got a little bit of work to do for my realtor client, who I've already created several videos for, and I'm almost done creating the fourth. I went and caught some B roll of it, the fourth video that I need to create on Sunday before I went to Highland's closing party. So, the deals keep rolling on, and luckily for me, the money keeps rolling in. And it's a big deal because, to go from having $200 to several thousand is a giant swing in my world. And it's allowed me a tiny little bit of breathing room. So while I don't have the money from this last client yet, they said that they would pay me. And then I've got the money coming from my previous clients who do like working with me and do have repeat business with me. They're coming through again. So I'm looking forward to working with them again and taking their money because they want to give it to me again and again and again. So it has been a pretty productive couple of weeks. I'm feeling pretty blessed as far as I feel like I'm starting to come through some of the suffering. I feel like the suffering is getting less and less, and the success is getting more and more, which was always the vision and always the plan. However, not always the case. And for a long time, I suffered more than I was succeeding. And now I finally feel like I've started to turn a corner. My business is off the ground and literally flying, and I feel really good about what I'm doing and what I'm up to and the kind of money I'm making, specifically because I can pay my rent. Now, another major level up, yay, Landon, yay, is I signed the paperwork for my lease for this year. So I've got another year living in this fantastic unit that I get to call home. Even though my rent will be going up and it's getting more expensive, as I'm finding some success, I'm still able to pay it. And that doesn't happen until July. So we still got another couple of months here. We got all of May, all of June before the rent does increase. However, I did sign the paperwork to be able to renew my lease for another year. In addition to which, I got to sit down and talk with the lady who goes through all of the auditing of my finances and the hours worked. And I told her I started my own business and that I've been tracking my own hours, and that I will like to sit down with her so that she could potentially do a rough audit, even though I don't have to do the full thing till next year. I just want to make sure that I'm tracking everything properly and that I'm making her job as easy as possible so that she can approve me next year and is already familiar with my business and my hours and the money that I've made, which I believe is all above the board. And so it shouldn't be very difficult for me to qualify. That said, I want to get ahead of it. And even though it's not for a year from now, I do have every intention of sitting down and opening up my books and being transparent so that she can give me the thumbs up and say, this is great, you're doing this properly, or, oh, you need to tweak this, this is how we need you to track it. So in addition to that, I got my taxes filed a while ago, and I finally got my refunds, which is the tiny little bit of buffer that I'm still living on to be able to get to the next payday. And it's just a godsend, I got $1,700 back in taxes, and it's been a huge help. So really grateful, really blessed that I am not broke and have a negative bank account because, I mean, 3 weeks ago I did. And so lots changed in these last couple of weeks as we're slowly turning the corner on the winter season and coming into spring and coming into more success, more clients, and more money. And so, again, I'm just feeling very blessed, and I'm feeling like the incremental wins, the small, little, minuscule wins that I do my best to try to capture and record here and talk about, are finally stacking up. And I'm finally got some foundation. And it was really interesting with this last client because I had everything I needed in order to get paid, which one of the points of friction that I've had is between issuing the contract and taking the money. And I took a 20% deposit, which was only $500. And again, I've learned I will no longer do that. I'm taking a 50% deposit from now on. But they wanted to pay, and I had a credit card QR code, which I didn't have initially, and I've got now. And then they decided they didn't want to pay with a credit card, and they would rather send a wire transfer. So I was able to get them the details that they needed to do the wire transfer. So I've reduced the friction between issuing an invoice and then taking the money. And I am pretty pleased with how all that's coming together. I really am. And so, other than that, I've got my apartment, which I'm dealing with, and it's still a little bit messy for my liking. And we really haven't made any progress on cleaning it up or tidying it up. However, it is in pretty close to like complete condition. I would say it's like 88% dialed, and I do have lots of paperwork and clutter that I would like to get organized and cleaned up and thrown away. And maybe we'll work on that today, maybe we'll work on that this week, but we're reaching the time of year where I've completed my 100 days of skiing, so I don't feel the fervor and the need to get out there. In addition to which, I've written for the newspaper quite a bit as well. And so I have a little bit of an invoice coming in from them and some money coming in from them, which, every dollar really helps. Every dollar makes a big deal. I'm also still heavily involved in my Toastmasters Club. We have a meeting tonight, and I will be there, as well as at my Eagles Club, my Fraternal Order of Eagles. I am trying to do my best to help. I got us a new ping pong table a little while ago, and now I believe I'm going to be nominated to be some sort of a club officer. I'll find out at the meeting tonight. And if I am nominated, I'll accept the role of responsibility and do my best to win in an election against several other people who will probably be nominated as well. So, lots going on, lots happening in my life. We're starting to hit the spring season, which is our off season. And so I would really love to get away. I would really love to go see Fish. They're playing a spring tour out on the West Coast. They're playing from essentially Portland, Oregon, all the way down to LA. I went out there last year and saw them play the Hollywood Bowl, which was fantastic, even though the lights aren't as good as they are at like Dick's Sporting Arena, which they've decided not to play this year. They're going to play Boulder Coliseum, Folsom Field. And I'm hoping to catch that. That's over the 4th of July. So I'm hoping to catch those shows as well. However, that's not till July, and I would really love to be able to go out to California, or not California, but I want to go to Portland. I want to go to Seattle and catch them up there where I've never been. But I ran into a friend who I taught English in South Korea with, George, at last year's Dick's shows, and we connected, and we reconnected anyway, and he lives in Portland. So unfortunately, those shows are 3 days away, and I just don't have the money yet to be able to afford to go do something like that. So we'll see how that all shakes down, but I'm definitely kind of got a wild hair up my ass on an idea that I could jump on a last minute flight and get myself out to Portland and catch these shows, which would be awesome, although probably not the most prudent decision, even though I kind of have a little bit of downtime, and even though I can work remotely. So all that's sort of what's happening in the current moment in time, and from that point of view, things are going well. Things are finally starting to ease up as far as the intensity and the pressure of not knowing how I'm going to pay my bills. At least I can pay my bills, so it's a big deal, and I'm excited about it. I feel really good about it. So with that, we will go ahead and take a quick look at the good old Daily Stoic. This is the Daily Stoic, 366 Meditations on Wisdom, Perseverance, and the Art of Living by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Well, last time I looked in this was March 29th. So it has been a little while. We're now to April 15th, which is official tax day. Let's just see what sort of wisdom the Daily Stoic has for us. Now, generally speaking, before I read from this, I like to let you into my mind, which is I am feeling relieved. I'm feeling successful. I'm feeling the like breath of relief that has come with getting enough money to be able to pay May's rent before May's rent is due, and to have the money to pay my bills and to have food in my refrigerator, which, I mean, I can't tell you how long I have gone freaking out about just trying to cover the rent, let alone food. So it's nice to have some high quality food. I went down Valley yesterday and went to Natural Grocers and bought myself some high quality food. I spent $160 on food, and was happy to do so. It's not too often I go down there anymore, and to be able to have access to high quality food for your body is no small deal. I stopped going to the gym so much, which is a little disappointing because I was on a really solid workout streak there, and I was definitely putting on some muscle. And I also had a drink or two over this last weekend, where I could definitely see my body's inflamed from the alcohol, and I'm a little bit pudgier and a little bit puffier. So hopefully going to get myself back into working out and taking care of my body again and eating this healthy food over these next couple of weeks, because my gym membership does expire in the beginning of May. So just a couple more weeks left here of being able to go to the gym and work out. Although I have gym equipment here, as you can see by this elliptical, and I have a weight bench and a chin-up bar. So when we get into this warmer weather, I do prefer to work out outside via hikes and or my home. So I don't really need a gym. That said, looking to take care of my body. I'm in a pretty good place mentally. I just fired a client, which to a certain degree feels good because they were not a good client, and I did not appreciate the way that they were conducting themselves as far as trying to do business with me. So it was kind of cool to be able to stick by my guns and stand up for the quality of my work, and to not issue them a discount, and to decide to not do future business with them as a result of that review, and to learn through this whole process. So a lot of learning happening, some success that's also met by some failure. Over the whole weekend, I was pretty disappointed with how things were going as far as the client went. And then it wasn't until yesterday, Monday, that I kind of decided, I talked to a few other business owners, and they're like, man, this guy is taking advantage of you. They're like, take his money and then never work with him again. And I did feel that. I felt like that was pretty good advice and pretty solid advice. And so now I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm feeling like I can stand on my own feet, and that I can back up what I'm commanding as far as a fee goes with confidence and superior quality work. And I believe I have that. So that's where I'm at mentally. We're kind of into spring cleaning. We're kind of trying to get our apartment organized. Just signed the lease papers this last Thursday, and looking forward to what the summer and the spring have in store for us. Hopefully, quite a few more business deals and some more money, and slowly increasing the gap between not being able to pay my bills and being able to pay my bills, and trending in the direction of being able to pay my bills on my own terms, doing my own thing, and delighting my clients, and doing a good job picking which ones I choose to work with. So that's where I'm at personally, and looking forward to getting this money, and then hopefully using some of it to catch up on past stuff that I owe. So here we go. April 15th, pay your taxes. Nothing will ever befall me that I will receive with gloom or a bad disposition. I will pay my taxes gladly. Now, all the things which cause complaint or dread are like the taxes of life, things from which, my dear, Lucilius, you should never hope for exemption or seek escape. Seneca, Moral Letters 96.2. As your income taxes come due, you might be like many people complaining at what you have to fork over to the government. 40% of everything I make goes to these people, and for what? First off, taxes go to a lot of programs and services you most certainly take for granted. Second, you think that you're so special? People have been complaining about their taxes for thousands of years, and now they're dead. Get over it. Third, this is a good problem to have. Far better than saying, making so little that there is nothing left to pay the government, or living in an anarchy and having to pay for every basic service in a struggle against nature. But more important, income taxes are not only taxes that you pay in life, are not the only taxes you pay in life. They are just the financial form. Everything we do has a toll attached to it. Waiting around is a tax on traveling. Rumors and gossip are the taxes that come from acquiring a public persona. Disagreements and occasional frustration are taxes placed on even the happiest of relationships. Theft is a tax on abundance and having things that other people want. Stress and problems are tariffs that come attached to success. And on and on and on. There are many forms of taxes in life. You can argue with them. You can go to great but ultimately futile lengths to evade them, or you can simply pay them and enjoy the fruits of what you get to keep. And now again, hearing that, I gotta say, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I finally have paid my taxes of life, and that I've put in the time and I've put in the effort, and that I've paid it, and I've paid it through suffering, and I've paid it through tears and sweat and blood, and that finally I'm starting to see the results of having paid those steep fees, and that the barrier to entry has been massively steep, but that I've finally overcome it, and now I'm in a place where I'm actually generating the kind of money that I hope to generate, and I'm actually doing something I enjoy for my work. And from that point of view, even though the taxes were steep, and even though I have suffered and continue to suffer pretty dramatically, I would say I'm starting to turn a corner. I'm starting to turn a corner. I'm starting to find some semblance of success, and that doesn't come without hard work up front. I think that they say that you pay the fee either way. You either pay the fee of doing the hard work, or you pay the fee of not doing the hard work. And in that way, for a long time in my life, I chose to pay the fee of not doing the hard work. And it resulted in a hard life. And now I've turned that corner and I've paid the fee of doing the hard work, and I'm finally starting to make it easier on myself. When I look into my future and when I ask myself, what would it take for me to be successful? What would it take for me to be rich? I'm making the choices that it would take. To a large degree, I don't buy alcohol anymore, and I stopped paying for weed. And so as a result, I don't drink very often, and I don't smoke weed nearly as much as I did, which was every day. And I can't say that those things have a direct effect. However, I definitely notice that my health is better. I definitely notice that my sleep is better. I definitely notice that I wake up earlier and I'm ready to get to work. And that in those times when I am bored, where I would normally smoke weed and or drink alcohol or take any number of the other drugs I use largely out of boredom, that instead I go to work. That instead I start thinking about, what can I do? How can I be better? How can I improve the business? How can I get better at flying the drone? How can I get better at editing? What can I do to push this thing forward? And it's those decisions in the moments of boredom that I believe have really been the difference between finding some sort of success and not. And again, those are tied directly to my financial situation. When I ask myself why I have been as broke as I have been, and why I heard Alex Hormozy say recently, self-made billionaires are self-made. Self-made millionaires are self-made. And self-made poor people are self-made. And that might be a harsh reality to hear, but if you are broke, if you are poor, if you are struggling, you are also self-made. And so it's from that point of view that I've decided to become a self-made millionaire instead of a self-made poor person. So as I've made these decisions and I've kind of analyzed my life and I've looked at sort of why I am where I am, It's been pretty easy for me to shift from paying for things like alcohol and weed when I don't have the money to do it. So it's like, okay, cool. What would it take for me to be rich? If it's not smoking weed, I am willing to sacrifice that. That's another thing. That's another question that is a great question to ask yourself, and a question that I asked myself, and I ended up making a pretty good list of, which is, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get what you want? What are you willing to sacrifice and give up in order to be who you want to be and access your fullest potential? And in that way, there's that expression, you have to kill yourself to become yourself. And I can feel that that's what's happening. I've killed the old version of me. I've killed the poor version of me so that I could allow myself to access some of this potential. And the old version of me and the poor version of me smoked weed every day and would spend some of my last $100. I'd spend $30 on alcohol just to be able to distract myself from my reality, which was really unpleasant and really difficult. So it's all those things together and combined that I'm trying to document and I'm trying to share. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job covering it. However, I feel like it's the struggle that's the drama, and that's kind of fun to watch. And that this show might start getting boring as I'm finding more and more success, and the struggle is becoming not only easier for me to handle because I'm an expert at handling struggle. I've been doing it since I was 18, but it's becoming less. I'm not having to struggle as frequently, and when I do struggle, I'm able to overcome it nearly immediately. And between that and then finding some semblance of success, I'm really widening the gap between me being successful and me not. And that's what I got for you today, guys. That's where we are at. It's April 15th. It is tax day. Pay your taxes. I've paid mine, and I think that we're finally starting to see what happens when you're willing to pay and when you're willing to step up, and even if you don't want to, and even if it stings, and even if you can't afford it, to pay. And I'm not talking about financially. Like, financially is the easy one of all the taxes that you have to pay. I'm talking about giving up the weed. I'm talking about giving up the alcohol. I'm talking about using my boredom to radicalize getting this business going and forward and pushing it, and to continue to pursue that with relentlessness, with just sort of blinders on, and nothing is going to deter me or take me off track. And if it does, we're getting right back on track. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm up to on this April 15th. And I hope that you were able to take something away from the good old Daily Stoic. This is written by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Thank you, gentlemen, for putting that book together. I find it to be particularly useful to me, and I hope that my audience finds it to be useful for them as well. So with that, I'm going to get back to doing what I do, hopefully organizing my apartment and getting things a little bit more dialed in so that I can find these little clips and stuff when I lose them, because it's got to be there somewhere. So, dude, it took me an hour to be able to launch this podcast this morning, which that is not good use of my time. That's not being efficient. It's much better when you can sit down, turn on the computer, and just start riffing. So I encourage all of you to be diligent in what you're doing, be thoughtful, be mindful, be considerate. Put in the preparation, put in the time before the actual thing, so that you are confident that even if you have a bad game, even if you play terribly, even if you don't deliver, that you can stand behind the idea that you left it all out on the court. You did your best. You put in the preparation. You put in the work. And sometimes, even despite all of that, you don't win. And that's okay, because then you can fall back on the idea that at least I practiced, at least I put in the prep, at least I was prepared and ready, and I just got beat that time. And in a world where I find the losses to be more educational than the wins, you should be embracing them. You should be embracing the suck and embracing the pain and the hardship, because that's where the gold is. That's where the lessons are. And from that point of view, losses are really wins. And so just make sure you're putting the prep time, and I wish you the best of luck. I'm your host, landed like a plane, and I'm taking off.